now, Mark, you have to answer questions.
No, I let Miss White go. Okay.
How bad could selling shoes? Either sell them or you
Yeah, no, I'm trying to work around. Who's who?
Okay, all right. Okay, I guess everybody is set. We're all ready? And good morning, everybody. And we thought that this would be important to update the media and, of course, the community out there on what specifically what the science is doing to identify the 4 bodies that were found over at Gilgo Beach over the last few days. And so that was the reason that we called this press conference. Again, a lot of times people forget about the science that's involved and how important it is, and get caught up, obviously, in the emotion of what's going on. This is obviously a major investigation, and we in the Suffolk County Police Department have allocated major resources to the investigation. The Chief of Detectives, Dominic Verone, has assigned extra detectives to the investigation. We have our computer crimes unit involved, obviously homicide, major case, missing persons bureau. And so, you know, I want to assure everybody that we're on top of this investigation. We put an announcement out yesterday that I met with the FBI. Again, that's normal. We talk to the FBI on major cases all the time, and so this wasn't unusual. We wanted to update them on what we had, where we were going. They offered any assistance that we needed, and we said, you know, thank you. We'll certainly take that under consideration. So we are in contact with them. I also want to mention that we're working, as you probably know, very closely with our own prosecutors in Suffolk County, the District Attorney's Office. You know, we do that with major cases, and that is occurring as we speak. As far as what we're doing with the investigation, as you know, there are some things that we will not talk about because it may impinge on the investigation or in some way negatively impact the investigation. So just understand that. We did reach out to the state police the last couple of days to solicit some more cadaver dogs for a further search of the area. We're going to expand the search throughout that community over the next few days. In fact, they're out there this morning with our canine units. The state police have assigned 10, they told us 10 cadaver dogs to assist us. And we want to make sure we didn't miss anything. And we're going to go over the same territory, but also expand the area of the search. And you can understand that with the terrain out there, and many of you have been out there, how difficult it is to see something. And so it is possible to miss something. And, you know, we want to be as close to 100% that we didn't miss anything. And so we assigned them, we made a decision yesterday, and they're assigned out there today, and we'll continue out there as long as necessary. Obviously, the homicide squad is going to be involved with how the search is conducted and overseeing it, but it'll be done under the canine operation. As you know, last night, in furtherance of the investigation, and you know, we talk to everybody that has any contact with anybody, especially in that community, and so it's appropriate that we talk to a lot of people. And the last night, you know, the homicide detectives, you know, confiscated the vehicle of the John that had met with Miss Gilbert. And I think, Chief, that was, he agreed to give up his vehicle. Am I correct on that? Or I'm not sure. But anyway, we brought the vehicle in, and the vehicle is going to be processed. And so that's just a continuation of the investigation. It's appropriate that we do that. You know, there are no suspects at this time. It's just that we want to cover all the areas of interest that may be of interest to this investigation and to the police department. I'm not going to comment on any further on, you know, evidentiary issues. I know you probably have 100 questions, but we're just not going to cover that. The investigation is ongoing, and I think that's pretty much the update from the police department, you know, aspect. At this time, we're not going to answer any questions right now, and I would, and I should mention, by the way, some of the questions I may not be able to answer or I don't want to answer. Okay, so you can try, but I can't guarantee anything. But at this point, I'm going to introduce the medical examiner, Yvonne Milewski, and she's going to give a presentation on the science involved and what they're doing and what they, where they are at this point. Yvonne?
Good morning, everybody. My first name is spelled Y-V-O-N-N-E. The last name is spelled M-I-L-E-W-S-K-I. Easier pronounced if you ignore the W. Milewski. I'm just here to make a few general comments about what's involved with the identification of deceased persons that fall under our jurisdiction. It is the Suffolk County Medical Examiner's responsibility to determine and to confirm the identification of all deceased persons that fall under our jurisdiction. Without the important step, the human remains cannot be identified and returned to family members so they can start their grieving process. For the majority of these cases, the identification is made by visual inspection and examination, where general features that are not particularly scientific come into play, such as age estimate, race, sex, and facial features. The body itself may be visually identifiable to those people who know the person. If the discovery of the dead individual is delayed, post-mortem changes do occur, and they advance with increasing time. And this certainly compromises and interferes with the visual identification method. When this occurs, medical examiners need to use every tool available at their disposal. These tools include the expertise of highly trained specialized scientists, such as forensic dentists and forensic anthropologists, as well as top-notch laboratory capabilities, DNA laboratories with state-of-the-art methodology and equipment. With regard to forensic anthropology scientific capability, the Suffolk County Medical Examiner's Office is in an official agreement with the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. They provide forensic anthropology consultant services to this office. The anthropologists at the New York City Medical Examiner's Office are the most experienced anthropologists in the country. They have been awarded an NIJ, and this is the National Institute of Justice grant, to assist external jurisdictions in the workup of unidentified skeletal remains and missing persons. And along with that grant funding and forensic capability is access to their state-of-the-art DNA laboratory that has made advances to extract more full or complete DNA profiles from bone tissue. Excuse me, just want to make sure I cover it. The Suffolk County Medical Examiner's Office is comprised of 3 sections. If folks here don't know, the crime laboratory, the forensic toxicology laboratory, and a medical forensic unit, the kind of unit that most people would just refer to as a medical examiner's office. Each one of our sections is fully accredited and staffed with highly trained forensic scientists, and we have top-notch in-house scientific capability in our laboratories. But I did want to highlight to you that we do use consultants in the identification of those remains that cannot be visually identified. And I can answer questions about the general process, but I won't be answering any questions about these cases specifically.
When you have bodies that are extremely decomposed, can you explain how you go about gender, race, doing those basics of the identifications you can do when you have nothing visual to work on, or no fingerprints or that kind of thing?
Well, the human skeleton is different in men and women and has various features. And anthropologists who are highly trained to recognize those features and determine sex are able to examine not even the entire skeleton, but sometimes parts of the skeleton and to make that determination.
Why have these bodies proven to be such a challenge?
They require some of the expertise of the forensic dentists and the forensic anthropologists to assist us to make their determination. We cannot use the visual method.
Like, how decomposed were they?
They're decomposed. I can't quantify for it. Each case is different, but they are decomposed and visual identification is not possible for these remains.
What would be the date range for the 4 bodies that have been found for when they, how long they've been?
That has yet to be determined. I mean, it is pretty early in the process. The anthropologists are still examining the remains, and there is information from the scene itself in terms of what was found in terms of plants and things like that. So that has not been determined, but I'll tell you from my experience, it will be most likely a range given because it's very difficult to very narrowly specify a time since death when you have perhaps a very long postmortem interval.
Will these skulls be used in forensic reconstruction, trying to reconstruct the facial features and the basically sculptures that are done on that, and then so that basically a face can be photographed and we can try and reconstruct what the person looked like? Is that going to happen in this case?
Facial reconstruction is usually done after all other means fail, so we will.
That's further down the line.
Correct. We will wait and see what the DNA analysis and extraction show after the profiles are uploaded into the databases and compared against relatives in the families.
Is
Are you
it
able to
possible
tell
that
how
you
these women
will
were-
not or cannot, that remains may not get identified? I mean, is that possible, given all the science we have today, that these bodies may not get identified?
I suppose that it's possible, but for instance, using DNA, if we don't have a DNA profile from the deceased person, or if we don't have DNA from lineage, meaning any number of relatives, we're not going to be able to make a match. And at that point, we would go to the facial reconstruction route, and I can't tell you how often that is successful. It is certainly sort of a last thing that people do. And if we don't have DNA or dental records, then we will be sort of waiting to see if any DNA gets uploaded into the databases, because there are many other occasions that DNA gets extracted from samples and uploaded into databases. So we all, of course, all hope that we'll have an answer from the material we have, but there's always a chance that we may have to wait.
Are you able to tell yet how these women were killed?
No.
Are you able to, based on what you know about how long they've been there, just from your overview of the preliminary look at how decomposed they are you able to tell if it's possible that these 2 missing women, with the timing involved, could have been 2 of the 4 bodies? The ones from the Craigslist, these prostitutes.
I can't say with any certainty that they are or they're not. I mean, they're at this point, they're true unknowns to me. I don't know how the commissioner.
No. We're waiting for the determination from the forensic pathology in the ME's office.
In terms of months or years, your opinion of how long the bones have been there?
I can't comment on that, and I don't know the answer to that question.
Doctor,
Based
can I
on
just
the-
ask the reverse of what Josh was asking? Have you had an opportunity, as a report suggests today, based on the bones of at least one of the remains, to determine that it was likely not one of those 2 women who have been in it?
I can't really comment on any specifics on those cases. I really
What
can't.
about the minimum length of time that these bodies were there? Is there a sense from your expertise, at least preliminarily, that they have to have been there a certain minimum period of time based on the decomposition?
I can't comment on that.
You would say they couldn't have been there for just a week, though, right?
I won't comment on that. No, I
They
won't
could
answer
have
questions
been
about
left there
these
last
cases. I will not answer any questions about
How
those
long
cases.
does it take for a body to severely decompose in a way in which these women were found?
That is a question that is not answerable. I mean, it really depends on very individual and specific circumstances. I can't answer that question.
Based on the skeleton that you do have, as far as putting together an age range, how exactly can that be done? Can gender be addressed in any way? Any other physical conditions, diseases, broken arm, other things that you might be able to learn
Yeah, gender, if the components of the skeleton that reflect sex difference are present in the remains, can be determined by an expert doing the examination, almost contemporaneous. But age estimate sometimes,
We were at that point already.
I have no final report, but I know the anthropologists are working on it. And age estimate is also, I don't know how narrow the range can be because that's clearly outside my expertise, but different parts of the skeleton age differently. So what an anthropologist does generally, it takes composite of all the information they have from the examination and comes up with a best estimate. So.
And the thing about the other conditions, is it possible to look at a skeleton and say, well, this person had a broken leg at one point in their life or had a disease, or is there anything else that you can pull from in a situation where you don't have, obviously, fingerprints or flesh or tattoos or...
Right. If a bone has been injured by any trauma or disease and there's a scar, which is what we call a callus, it should be visible to the naked eye and on an X-ray. So.
Is that being done? That's going to be done as part of here, not in the city.
Oh yeah, we X-ray all skeletal remains that come into this facility, not just these cases, all skeletal.
How soon can you rule out an identity? In other words, if the families of these two prostitutes say, we've supplied DNA, how soon can you rule out an identity?
The DNA extraction process on bone samples takes longer than soft tissue. It's being done on bone, and they tell us that it can take up to 30 days to have that examination complete. It depends on the condition of the bone. I can't make a statement. That's a scientific one in the laboratory, and depending on the scientific condition, it can take away from that time and also add to it. So we'll just have to wait and see and let the scientists do their job.
Commissioner, about what's happening right now in Ocean Park. It seems like...
Any more questions for the medical examiner?
Doctor, can you describe what the sequence of events is? You've talked about all various types of forensic analysis during this conversation we've been having. Can you just describe what the sequence is, what you do first, fingerprints, DNA, whatever it is, and then how you move along through the process?
Well, the first thing I mentioned was visual inspection, examination. It's something that, we all can use our eyes and see on a body. And if there are fingerprints, they're done very early in the process. Obviously, the fingerprints are there. It takes experts not long to print them and examine them and upload them into databases. We'll do our routine X-rays. And if at some point the body requires the expertise of scientists to look at the bones to help us determine age estimate, race, gender, then our consultants are very responsive and they get involved as soon as I call them.
Doctor, a hypothetical case, ocean environment, many months goes by, possible animal contact. How much more difficult and complicated does that make your job?
Well, there are many environmental factors that complicate remains being left outside for a period of time, and those are certainly some of them. So, that's why it's very difficult to make generalizations about, a hypothetical case.
In specific, you mentioned plants before. Is that you have samples from under the remains or seeds or other animal biological activity within the remains itself? What are you referring to about?
I know that samples have been taken, but I'm not at this time aware of the analysis and where we're at with that.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner, perhaps one question to you that I think you may be able to answer. You said no suspects, but could you speak to leads? Do you have leads and how strong they are?
No, I'd rather not get into that right now. I had mentioned at the outset that we wouldn't discuss the investigation, so I'm just going to not answer that question. Thank you.
Can you clarify something you said the other day? You said that Ms. Gilbert was headed to Fire Island. The reports are that she had an encounter with this man at Oak Beach. Can you clarify what her destination was? Was she going to Oak Beach or was she going to Fire Island? And if she was going to Fire Island, where on Fire Island?
I don't recall saying that because her destination was Oak Beach.
Commissioner, there seems at the moment to be two different operations going on. There's the Ocean Parkway search with the 10 canines from the state police and other assets, and then there's...
And our canine, Suffolk County canine.
Right.
Yeah, we're overseeing the operation of the search, yeah.
The large-scale 10-mile search of Ocean Parkway. And then there's a separate operation of search going on, or has been over the past 12 hours, at Brewer's house. Can you speak to the connection between the two? Are these two separate
No, I'm not.
operations?
No, I'm not going to get into that. The search of the crime scene area that I mentioned has been expanded, east and west, and both sides of the highway. We want to make sure that we didn't miss anything, and that's appropriate. And again, the environment has an impact on how successful we were the first time, and so we thought it was prudent to go back and do a further search of areas that we've covered the first time. And so that's what we're doing. The state police are assisting us, and we'll see what happens in the next few days.
Did anything lead you to do that, or was that just, you just
No.
did that
I
on
did-
your own?
no,
Or
the
did
que-
anything lead you to believe
No, we
that?
did this on our own.
Advice.
We brainstormed our response to this horrendous incident, and we decided that we were going to go back and search the area.
Commissioner-
That's the prudent thing to do.
Commissioner, can I
It's the
make-
right thing to do. As far as the FBI, the question was the FBI. They're just again, if we need any resources from them, they have offered them to us. At this time, they're not giving us any resources. We have plenty of resources in the police department to conduct this investigation, as I mentioned.
Commissioner,
Is
can I
Joseph
make
Brewer
a,
in custody?
I'm sorry?
Is he in custody or being questioned?
No,
Joseph Brewer.
I have no information on that. I can't answer that.
Joseph
Commissioner-
Brewer, the operation in his house right now, is that in connection with the missing?
I'm not going to get into the operation in the house. I'm not going to
Commissioner,
comment on that.
Can I make a practical request, please? One news organization is being consistent, exclusive access to your department, and the rest of us are essentially being frozen out with an occasional belated press release. Could we ask for more fair access to your department?
Yeah.
And speaking on behalf of my colleagues and myself, we need more and basic access, because the equation in your department has changed since the last major incident, and we are at a loss to do our jobs. So
Well, we
would
discussed
appreciate
this.
that.
We discussed this morning with Mark and the chief of detectives, and we're going to streamline the access. One person contact in the police department. The chief and I are going to work on that when we leave here, and you will be advised of who the contact is for updates, follow-up, questions, that kind of thing.
This is a member of the department, not a civilian?
Yeah, it'll be a member of the department,
Thank
but
you.
but
Thank you, Commissioner.
so.
Could you speak to how tough this case is in terms of investigation, how complicated?
Well, you can imagine this is a difficult case, and the identity of the four bodies is of utmost importance for the investigation, and so it is a difficult case. But again, we get difficult cases, we work them, and that's what we're going to do in this instance.
Commissioner,
access
based
to
on
Ocean
the
Parkway
preliminary
is-
stuff you're gonna get from the bodies, the preliminary information as far as age ranges and genders and all that, what can be done, not speaking to the specifics of the two missing women, but looking at missing persons cases, looking at other old casework, what can be done to narrow down possibilities for other victims?
Well, that would be certainly helpful when the medical examiner puts out the final report, and we do get to that stage. It certainly will be an assistance to the police department in identifying, or at least coming up a group of missing people that might fit that profile. So that
Commissioner, access to Ocean Parkway is currently blocked. I was wondering if any arrangements could be made. Obviously, you don't want 30 reporters down there traipsing around, but can arrangements be made for pool coverage to have reporters accompany the officers and the dogs, with photographers, maybe one photographer, one video person?
well, I appreciate
Instead of completely blocking us out?
Well, I appreciate your, that you would like to be there. I understand that, but it's a potential crime scene, and that's always the issue with, the police department with the science involved. So, I have to leave that to the people at the scene who have to make that decision. And again, I mentioned that there's a potential crime scene. It could happen at any time.
Couldn't you
Commissioner,
arrange
this
it
is
on a
not
pool
This
basis?
is not a question about the bodies, but the missing persons cases. There's the one case that you were looking for in the first place that started this whole thing. There's this other case of the woman from Maine. They seem to bear similarities. Are there other open missing persons cases in Suffolk County that are of a similar nature? That you know, could potentially all be like.
Well, we're looking at every missing person case in Suffolk County and surrounding communities. We're looking at that as we speak. The Detective Division is going through all the files, and they're still doing that. So that's part of the investigation, and it's ongoing as we speak.
But can you quantify, I mean, is there some number of other women who are?
No, I don't have any numbers, you know, and if there are any relationship to this type of incident. I can't give you any information on that right now.
Sir,
How
can you?
cautious should people be of Craigslist?
Well, I really don't want to comment on Craigslist. People, you know, do what they do. I don't want to comment on
You don't think in
Craigslist.
light of what's happened that people might fear Craigslist in some
Well-
way, or want to be careful?
Well, if they read your media, newspapers, and watch television, you know, they make up their own minds. That's what people do.
Sir, can you clarify the situation with the vehicle that was taken? You said earlier in this conversation that it was essentially voluntarily turned over. You turned to Chief Barone, who started shaking his head, and then everybody moved.
Well, look, we don't want, really, I think what the chief was concerned with, that we get into an area of the investigation that we shouldn't get into, and I'd rather not make any more comments on the vehicle.
Just my question,
Or
sir,
that
you
particular.
stated that it had been voluntarily turned over. Was the chief shaking his head because that was incorrect information, or because he was chastened that his boss had said something he shouldn't have?
I may have had an itch. I didn't.
No.
I really wasn't shaking. No.
No, he'll.
Statement remains operative.
Yes.
Yeah, look,
Sorry to give you the
he'll probably tell me when we leave here, okay?
I keep reading that sources say that you are starting to think it's not Shannon Gilbert, that she's not one of the
Look,
four bodies.
no, what I've said is that we have no information that she's one of the four. We have no information that anybody is one of the four. And I've said that from the outset. We let the scientists do their thing, and then we work from there. But I know that there's been a lot of assumptions made, you know, over the last few days. And it didn't come from me, it didn't come from the detectives, it didn't come from the medical examiner.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We need
so,
facts.
We're not getting.
no, well, you know, sometimes we don't have, well, sometimes we don't have all the information, and that's why we can't give it to you.
Give
And
it
also,
to Tuesday, or
well,
somebody is.
okay, any more questions? That's it.
Should people-
One more, please.
Should people be scared?
Oh, no, I don't think, no. I don't want anybody to think that we have a Jack the Ripper running around Suffolk County with blood dripping from a knife, which might be the impression that some people would get. It's not that type of situation. And so I would say to people, go about your business. As we say all the time, you should be careful anyway during this holiday season. But certainly Suffolk County is one of the safest counties anywhere in the United States. Violent crime is down. Overall crime is down. Many of you live and work in Suffolk County. You know exactly what I'm talking about. This is an anomaly, and unfortunately it happens in many jurisdictions, too many jurisdictions, where you have incidents like this. And so Suffolk County is safe. People go about their business. Don't worry about this. And we're going to do everything we can to bring closure, as the medical examiner mentioned, to the families, because there are families out there that have lost loved ones who are wondering if their daughter is one of these four. And so we're very aware of that, and it's going to be, you know, we're going to do all we can to bring this to a conclusion. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Has the department's been contacted by other families looking for some relatives?
Not with permission, right? See, 3-2? Would love it, yeah. It's really quick, I mean, I won't ask you
Treating it like that. So, you know, it looks like four victims in one spot, and, you know, with all that, the ramifications of that. So it is a big investigation, and we're treating it as such. Thank you.
Is there anything that's flabby?
This is